Hare Krishna. So we'll start with the Mangalacharana prayers. Om Ajnanatimarantasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sakarjadam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvedam Savadudam Parijana Sahidam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpadarubhescha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Nidhi Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we've been studying chapter 4 of Bhagavad-gita as it is. It's entitled Transcendental Knowledge. So why is this chapter titled so? Why is it called Transcendental Knowledge? How did Krishna end the third chapter? What did he say towards the end of third chapter? Krishna says that the greatest enemy of the soul is kama, lust. So how to overcome lust? That comes the next question. How to overcome lust? What does Krishna say? The beginning of fourth chapter. He says that the way is by deliberate spiritual knowledge or transcendental knowledge. That's why the fourth chapter is entitled as Transcendental Knowledge. So for easy study of this chapter, we have divided this chapter into 4 sections. And Keshava Swami Maharaj, in his book of Gita acronyms, he's given the acronym to remember these 4 sections as EARS. Ears. Why ears? Why ears? Yeah, because spiritual knowledge is Shruti, that which is heard. So you first hear, then you remember, you assimilate knowledge, and then pass on the knowledge to others. So EARS. So the first, how many slokas are there in chapter 4? 42 slokas. So the first 10 shlokas comprise the first section. So E stands for eternal education. Eternal education because the wisdom of Bhagavad-gita is not like the wisdom that we learn in this world. In the material world, what do we get when we go to school and colleges? We get material knowledge. We are studying more and more about the body, about the environment, what's going on in the material world. That is what material knowledge is all about. And this is about Jada Vidya. It is matter. It is temporary. It doesn't exist after a certain period of time, or it keeps changing. Whereas transcendental knowledge is eternal in nature. It never changes. Have you ever heard that the Bhagavad-gita has changed over time? No. The knowledge must have been lost at some point of time. But the knowledge is never lost. So, eternal education. So, Krishna in the first section of the chapter 4, he gives a history of Bhagavad-gita. So, it's not the first time that he is explaining the Bhagavad-gita to Arjuna. So many millions of years back, he gave this knowledge to the sun god, Vivaswan, who then passed it on to his son, Manu, and then to Ikshvaku. So a parampara was created, and through that parampara, this knowledge came down. So this parampara, over time, Kala destroys everything over time. So this parampara, this knowledge which came down through this Raja Rishis, that was lost over time. And so now Krishna is again giving this knowledge. To whom? To Arjuna. Why to Arjuna? What was the qualification that Arjuna had? Bhaktosi me Sakacheti. He was his dearmost friend as well as devotee. So to Arjuna, Krishna is again giving this knowledge. So he's giving the history of Bhagavad-gita in the first section, and why he's explaining the Gita again to Arjuna. That also he's explaining in the first section. So that's the first 10 verses. Then comes the second section. A stands for accurate understanding. So most people have various understanding about spirituality. They think that all spiritual paths lead to the same goal. But in the second section, from verse 11 to 15, Krishna is giving something else. He's giving the knowledge that no, all spiritual paths don't lead to the same destination. There are different gradations of spiritual knowledge. And then he also explains about the misconception of polytheism. Most people think that Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma is a polytheistic religion. It's a religion of many, many gods. But actually Krishna says that no, it's a monotheistic religion, way of life. There's only one God, and that's explained in the second section. So accurate understanding he's giving. And he also explains about Varnashrama, the Varnashrama system, which in modern days is misconstrued as the caste system. So he also explains why the Varnashrama was created, for what purpose it was created. So that perfect understanding, or the accurate understanding, is given in the second section. So now we have reached the third section. R stands for removing reactions. So transcendental knowledge, this whole chapter is about spiritual knowledge, transcendental knowledge. It removes philosophical doubts, as well as it also helps in removing one's karmic reactions. So in this section, we learned what karma is, what vikarma is, and what akarma is. So this is the section that we are currently discussing. And the last section, which is from verses 25 to 42, is all about sacrifice. So in order to understand transcendental knowledge, sacrifice is needed. And how is it possible? By giving up pride and humbly approaching a spiritual master, a guru who comes in the disciplic succession, a guru who comes in the guru parampara. You have to approach a guru in a humble mood, serve him, and when the guru is pleased, he will impart the truth to you. He will explain what this spiritual knowledge is all about. And by giving up pride, the heart becomes fertile to receive spiritual knowledge, and the spiritual knowledge will blossom in your heart. So this is the 4 sections to easily understand the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. So last class, we were discussing 4.18, which is quite a confusing verse, because it's not only a tongue twister, it's a brain twister as well. Inaction in action and action in inaction. What does this all mean? Nice class we had last time by His Grace Muralidhara Gopesha Prabhu. But I'll just give a recap of what we learned last time. So, karmanya akarma ya pashyed. So here, Krishna is saying that somebody might be doing work. He might be doing work, but at the same time, he doesn't get the reactions of that work. So inaction, inaction. So here, inaction means no reactions. And action means work. So somebody is doing work. Usually when we do some work, we get the reactions of that work. It either might be positive reaction or a negative reaction. When you do your work, you get your salary. That's the reaction of the work that you do. Suppose when you're walking on the road, somebody is coming across you and you give him one tight slap across the cheek. What happens? He'll hit you back. You get the instant reaction to that work. That's a negative reaction. But here, Krishna is interestingly saying that somebody is doing work, but he is not receiving the reactions of that work. How is that possible? Yes. How is that possible? When one does work in the divine consciousness as a service to the Lord, then there is no reaction involved. So what is the technical term for this? Akarma. So this is called akarma. So we learned what karma is, what vikarma is, and what akarma is. So when you do some work and you don't get the reactions of that work, then it becomes akarma. So why should we do akarma? What is the harm in doing karma? Why is Krishna saying that you should engage in akarma? Why? Okay, there's no reactions. So yes. So when there is no reactions, then you are no longer entangled in this material world. You can get out of this material world. So this material world is like a jail. We are now in this jail. But because of our forgetfulness, we don't realize that we are in a jail now. So as spirit souls, our real residence is in the spiritual world. Being part and parcel of Krishna, we are supposed to enjoy there in the spiritual world. But because of our ignorance, because of Maya, we are now living in a world of illusion, and we think that this is our residence. And we are trying to extract happiness out of this world. And Krishna is trying to remind us, this is not your residence. You can't get happiness from this world. If at all any happiness you get, it is fleeting. It is ephemeral. It is temporary. It's not going to last for long. It will die out. And again, you will go back to your old depressed self. So Krishna is saying that perform akarma. So that's the first line by karmanya akarma. Ye pashyad. Now what's the second line? Akarmani cha karmaya. What does that mean? Action in inaction. So Krishna is saying that, okay, Krishna, you said that if we perform work, we get reactions. So from today onwards, I'm not going to perform any work. I'm going to keep away from this material world. I'm going to lock myself up. I'm going to sit in a corner and I meditate upon the Brahma Jyoti, the effulgence that emanates from the Lord. I'm going to focus on that only. I'm not going to interact with this world. So what does Krishna say? He is in inactivity, but still he will get the reactions of that. How is that possible? He's not doing anything, but still he will get the reactions of that. He's not doing anything, but still he gets the reactions of it.
He's not serving the Lord. Not fully purified.
How does he get the reactions? He's not doing anything at all. Action in inaction. That is what Krishna is saying by akarmanicha karmaya. He's not engaging in any kind of activities. That's the answer. Who is the culprit? Mind. Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita again that your mind is your greatest enemy. It's not your next door neighbor. It's your mind who is your greatest enemy. So this person might be, he's not interacting with the external world. He's locked himself up and he's trying to meditate. But what happens? His mind is contemplating in all kinds of sense desires. And he's making up so many ideas, thinking of so many things. So his mind is in a turmoil. And that creates karmic reactions. So Krishna is saying that so a person who has this proper understanding, he knows what akarma is, and he knows that even if inactivity can cause karmic reactions. So that's what's meant by inaction, inaction, and action in inaction. So if this person has a proper understanding, he is a buddhiman manusheshu, sab-buddhiman manusheshu. He is the most intelligent among all men. He's the most intelligent person. So even though because he has this proper understanding, since he is engaged in akarma, he is not bound to this world. That is what we learnt in the previous shloka. And Krishna, just to go back to the previous chapter, Krishna again says that if someone is not doing any activity, but his mind is in a turmoil and it's thinking about all sorts of things, what is that person called? One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. He is called a Nitya-chara. Nitya-chara sa uchyate. So Nitya-chara, he's not only fooling the whole world, but he is fooling himself also. He thinks that he is a very advanced devotee, he is making spiritual progress, but in effect, no. This is the opinion of Krishna. So every morning we have this japa, online japa session we have, and after from 3:30 to 5:30 onwards, and from 5:30 to 5:45, we read certain books which help in our sadhana. So currently we are reading this wonderful book called Sri Manasiksha, which is written by one of the Goswamis, Nitya-dāsa Goswami. So I just brought this topic up because I just mentioned about, Krishna mentions about Nitya-chara, pretender, one who is pretending to be inactive, but actually he is very active. So this is called hypocrisy, deceit, hypocrisy. So Sri Manasiksha consists of 12 verses, and it is a set of instructions that Nitya-dāsa Goswami is giving to whom? To the mind. He is addressing the mind, because mind is our greatest enemy, and for spiritual practitioners, Nitya-dāsa Goswami is giving the instructions on how we can control the mind, how we can take care of our minds. So in the 6th verse of the Manasiksha, Nitya-dāsa Goswami is mentioning about deceit and hypocrisy. So as sadhakas, we are moving on the pathway to pure love of Godhead. But on this pathway, there are 6 robbers waiting for us, waiting to capture you and plunder you and rob you. You know who these 6 highway robbers are? Lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, and envy. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Malsarya. So these 6 robbers are waiting to capture the sadhaka who's on the highway to whom? Where? What is his endpoint? The lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. And what are they doing here? They have put a noose around the neck and they're trying to kill, trying to strangle the sadhaka. And who's the leader of this pack? Kama is the leader. Kama is the leader. So, suppose you are in danger. Someone is attacking you, or you're in some kind of danger. What is the first thing that you'll do? What will you do? Will you just sit quiet and... No. You will scream for help. You will call out for help, right? So as sadhakas, every day we are chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Why? It is a call for Bhagavan's mercy. We are calling out for help. So when we are overcome by these 6 obstacles on the pathway to bhakti, we should call out to the killer of Baka. Who's the killer of Baka? Who's the killer of Baka? There is Bakasura. And who has killed him? Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has killed him. And he sends his associates, he sends his devotees. And what do? They come and cut the noose and they rescue the devotee. So this is the importance of satsanga. So every Friday we are meeting here. Why are we taking time and coming here and discussing Bhagavad-gita and chanting the holy names of the Lord? Because it's only in the association of devotees that we can move forwards. Otherwise, If we just sit at home and try to chant the holy names and try to study by ourselves, we will never make progress. We will always, at some point of time, we will fall down. Because lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy is always waiting to capture you. So that is why satsanga is very important. Association of devotees is very important, and that is why Prabhupada created ISKCON. So that like-minded individuals can come together and discuss Krishna Katha and thereby make progress. So once someone has overcome these 6 obstacles, there is still one more obstacle to be overcome. Suppose you have overcome all these 6 obstacles. What is the main obstacle which lies ahead? And that is, see, all these 6 are dead there. But what do you see here? What is this creature?
Ass.
It's an ass or a donkey. And what is it doing? What is it doing? It's urinating. So this donkey represents hypocrisy. So Raghunath Goswami is saying, in the beginning of Manashiksha, he addresses the mind as my dear brother. He's using very sweet words to take control of the mind. So there are different ways by which you can control your enemy. One way is by using sweet words. You can either cajole and use sweet words and try to take control of him. Or what is the next step? Use force. That is the next step. So when at the beginning of the first verse of Manashiksha, Raghunath Goswami is addressing the mind as, my dear brother, please listen to what I have to say. Please give up pride and get attached to Guru, devotees, the Diksha mantra that one's Guru gives to you, to the names of, to the holy names of Sri Sri Radha Krishna, and finally to the divine couple Sri Sri Radha Krishna. He gives a long list. But here in the 6th verse, his tone completely changes. He's not saying, my dear brother. He says, Are Cheta. He's saying, oh foolish mind, why are you bathing in the trickling urine of, in this burning urine of this donkey of hypocrisy? He's using strong words. His whole mood changes. Raghunath Goswami is using strong words. He's trying to wake us up from this deep slumber. He's saying that you shouldn't bathe in this burning urine of hypocrisy. Instead, you should bathe in the nectar that is flowing from the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. So this is about hypocrisy, and that's what we discussed in the previous verse. So if hypocrisy means you are pretending to be someone which you are not. That is what is meant by hypocrisy. Externally, you might present yourself to the whole world that you are a very knowledgeable person or you are a very great devotee. But internally, behind the screen, behind the doors, you are engaging in all kinds of abominable actions. So that's what's called by a pretender or a mithyachara. So that is what is meant by action in inaction. Externally, he seems to be not involved in any activities, but behind the doors, he is engaging in all kinds of activity, abominable activities. So such a person is called a mithyachara because he is under the influence of this great donkey of hypocrisy. So Raghunath Goswami is saying, wake up. Don't bathe in this burning, trickling urine of hypocrisy. Okay, so now let's come to today's topic. 4.19. Yasya sarve samarambha kama sankalpa varjita jnanagni dagda karmanam tamahu panditam buddha. Yasya, one whose survey, all sorts of samarambha, attempts, kama, based on desire for sense gratification, sankalpa, determination, varjita, are devoid of, jnana, of perfect knowledge, agni, by the fire, dagdha, burnt, karmanam, whose work, tam, him, ahu, declare, panditam, learned, buddhaha, those who know. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker, for whom the reactions of work have been burnt up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Please repeat after me. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker, for whom the reactions of work have been burnt up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Purport. Only a person in full knowledge can understand the activities of a person in Krishna consciousness. Because the person in Krishna consciousness is devoid of all kinds of sense gratificatory propensities, it is to be understood that he has burnt up the reactions of his work by perfect knowledge of his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. Development of this knowledge of eternal servitorship to the Lord is compared to fire. Such a fire, once kindled, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. So in this verse, Krishna is giving the characteristics of a wise person. He is explaining how a wise person acts without attachment and how this knowledge burns up all karmic reactions. So let's see the meaning of this verse. Yasya sarve samarambha. Sarva samarambha. Though a person is engaged in all kinds of samarambha, all activities, all endeavors. So this is referring to a devotee's activities because he is working in the right consciousness, that is Krishna consciousness. What happens? Kama sankalpa varjita. Kama means material desire. Sankalpa means a motive for selfish gain. So a transcendentalist, he doesn't work for these things. He doesn't work for kama. He doesn't work for sankalpa, for selfish gain also. So varjita, he gives up all these things and instead he works for what? He works for whose pleasure? He works for Krishna's pleasure. Perfect example is Arjuna. Arjuna at the beginning of the Kurukshetra war, he had his own understanding and ideas and he decided that he's not going to fight this battle. Then what did Krishna do? Krishna said, "Oh Arjuna, you are a fool. Listen to me." And he gave the Bhagavad-gita. And after hearing the Bhagavad-gita, what did Arjuna do? He fought the battle. He fought the battle not for personal gratification, not for personal gain. He fought for whom? He fought for the pleasure of Krishna. And thereby he became victorious. So this is how a transcendentalist works. Kama sankalpa varjita. Jnanagni dagda karmanam. Jnana agni. Jnana means knowledge and agni means fire. So transcendental knowledge here is described as fire of knowledge. So Jada Vidya we discussed earlier. Material knowledge. It is nowhere described as Jnana Agni. But here transcendental knowledge is described as fire of knowledge. Why? Dagda karmanam. Because it burns up the reactions of one's karma. Just like fire burns wood to ashes, Jnana Agni burns up the reactions of one's karma. Tamahu panditam Buddha. So Buddha means wise people, sages. They call such a person as what? Pandita. Someone who is learned. So who is a wise person? Krishna is describing the qualities of a spiritually advanced person. How does he work? He works without selfish motives. His only desire is to please the Lord, and thereby he just performs it as an act of duty. He is not attached to the results of the work. He is doing everything for the pleasure of the Lord. And because he has this proper knowledge, his actions burn up all his karmic reactions. So this is Atma Jnana. Atma Jnana means he knows that he is not this body. He is a spirit soul. He is part and parcel of Krishna. And his constitutional position is to serve Krishna. He is an eternal servant of Krishna. So he knows his position very well. Atma Jnana. He is in proper knowledge. And because of that, he acts accordingly. And because he has his proper knowledge, Jnana-Agni destroys all his karmic reactions. So this is the difference between ordinary work and one who is working in proper knowledge. So ordinary work is called as karma. The other one, Jnana Yukta Karma. So karma is often driven by desire. I want to achieve something, and therefore you work towards that goal. That is karma. Whereas one who is working in proper knowledge, he doesn't have any desire. The only desire he has is to do that duty, and he is not attached to the results. Second, what is the second difference? He is bound by karma. The karmi who does that work, he will have to face the reactions. Sometimes it can be something good, sometimes it may not be that good. So he is bound by karma. Whereas a person who works in proper knowledge, he doesn't face the reactions of that work. Because he is doing, what kind of work is he doing? Karma, or he is doing akarma. Yeah. Third difference, karmi is focused on the results. He is focused only on what he will get towards the end. Whereas one who works in knowledge, he is not bothered about the results. He is only bothered about doing that duty properly. And what is the end result of a karmi? He has to again keep on taking birth in this material world. He'll keep on taking birth, death. So this cycle of birth and death will keep on perpetuate. It will keep on going. Whereas one who works in proper knowledge, he can get out of this jail. He can go back to the spiritual world. It leads to liberation. So the practical application for us, what we can learn from this verse is that every devotee should try to fine-tune his action so that he can do it as a service to Krishna. Suppose someone is interested in reading. If you like to read, how can you make it converted into devotional service? You are very much interested in reading. Yeah, instead of reading mundane things, mundane books, mundane novels, you can focus your reading towards reading the Bhagavad-gita, Bhagavatam, any spiritual literature. Prabhupada has given us so many books. You can read that. Suppose you enjoy watching movies. How can you make it into akarma? You can watch devotional, Krishna conscious, so many plays, dramas, movies are there. You can watch that. Suppose you like cooking. You can cook for the pleasure of the Lord. There is a process how to cook for the Lord. You just have to follow that, offer it to the Lord and take it as prasadam. So thereby you can make spiritual progress. So this is how we can fine-tune our work towards selfless service. So from this verse we should learn how to perform every action as a service to Krishna. Because selfless service is the essence of spiritual advancement. And Srila Prabhupada he always emphasized that you should work for Krishna's pleasure and not for personal gain. So some takeaway points from today's shloka. What is the first point? Someone can read?
Real wisdom is not in inactivity, but in acting in Krishna consciousness.
So many people have a misconception that spirituality means we keep away from everything, sit idle, just sit in one corner, try to meditate. No. Krishna consciousness is all about activity. How to work for Krishna, how to make Krishna happy. That is what Krishna consciousness is about. Perfect example is none other than Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada at the age of 70 in 1965, he was 70 years old man. He could have led an easy retirement life. He was in Vrindavan, in Radha Damodar temple, living very comfortable there. But what did Srila Prabhupada do? He followed his guru's orders. His guru ordered him that you should go to the Western world and preach the message of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada had never been outside India. But just to follow the orders of his guru, he took up this task. He had no money, he had no security. There was no one there in USA to help him. And despite that, on a cargo ship called Jaladuta, it was not a luxury cruise. On a cargo ship, he set sail in 1965 from Calcutta to New York, USA. And en route, he became seasick, he developed 2 heart attacks. And after the second heart attack, he just left everything to Krishna. He wrote a beautiful poem in which he said that, Krishna, you are the captain of this ship. I am just a puppet in your hands. You can make me dance as you like. That was his mode, complete surrender. And after almost a month, he reached Boston port. And when he got out of that ship, he didn't know where to go. He didn't know whether to turn left or right. Just put yourself in that situation. Put yourself in Srila Prabhupada's shoes. Your guru has ordered you to go to a foreign country. You don't have anything with you. All you have is faith in your guru and Krishna. That was Srila Prabhupada's situation. And he had to still struggle for almost a year. He struggled there. And finally in 1966, with a small group of young Westerners, he established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And his problems didn't end with that. After that, he developed a stroke, but still Prabhupada never gave up. He continued the message of Krishna because he had only one burning desire, and that was to serve Guru and Krishna. So real wisdom is not in inactivity, but in acting in Krishna consciousness. That's the first point that we can learn from this verse. Let's see what the second one is. You can read.
Devotional service burns up all karma. Hence, a devotee is free from past, present, and future reactions. He has nothing to fear.
So there is this, I'll just narrate one story which I heard on YouTube. One of Prabhupada's disciples, Shrutakirti Prabhu, he was once Srila Prabhupada's personal servant. This is in the 70s, in the early days of ISKCON. In Mayapur this happened. So Srila Prabhupada was in his room. There were some 8 to 10 devotees in that room. And Srila Prabhupada was talking to them. He was personally instructing these devotees. And Shrutakirti Prabhu, since he was the personal servant of Srila Prabhupada, this was on the second floor. So he had to go down. At that time, there was no running water. So he had to go down, collect water from the well, and heat the water. And he was carrying 2 buckets of warm water. He brought it all the way up to the second floor. And as the bathroom is beyond Srila Prabhupada's room. So he opened the bathroom door and he saw a huge black cobra in the bathroom. The moment he saw this cobra, immediately he closed the door and he dropped the buckets and he ran to the veranda. So in the veranda there was another devotee by the name Bhavananda Prabhu. So Shrutakirti Prabhu didn't want to disturb Prabhupada because he was talking to other disciples. So he just told Bhavananda Prabhu that I saw a cobra in the bathroom. And Bhavananda immediately started screaming, Prabhupada, there's a big cobra in the bathroom. And all the devotees, they got so anxious, they got up and they all ran to the veranda. And Prabhupada was just simply sitting there. He was looking out through the window. He could see the Chaitanya mud from there, and he was continuing chanting on his beads. All the devotees but were creating a big commotion there. So among this group of devotees, there was one devotee. What was his name? Rasaparayana Prabhu, I think. He was of Kshatriya character. So he said, I'll take care of the snake. And he had a small knife with him. So he led the group. So everyone is standing behind this Prabhu. And this Prabhu with his knife forwards, he's moving towards the bathroom door. And meanwhile, our other devotees started discussing, how did this cobra come to the second floor? Maybe some of Prabhupada's envious god brothers must have planted the snake there. They were coming with all sorts of theories. And someone else was saying, no, this could be the communist government. This is the work of the communist government. They are the ones, so they're trying to kill Prabhupada. That's why they're doing this. So all sorts of theories were floating, and this Prabhu with his knife in hand, he went to the bathroom, and as he opened the door, he saw that the snake was sliding through a pipe which led outside. So that's how the snake came in. It's not that someone came and planted the snake inside. So as the snake was going out, he grabbed the snake by his tail, and using this knife, he chopped it into pieces, and he killed the snake. So they came and told Prabhupada, this is what happened. And Prabhupada said, for one snake, so much of commotion. And as they were standing near Prabhupada, they heard the chirping of a bird outside. And Prabhupada said, did you hear that sound? This is the sound of a snake bird. You know what will happen? Someone who kills a snake, in the dying moments, the snake will capture the image of its murderer, of the one who killed that snake. And that image will be there in its eyes. And as the mate of the snake comes, the mate will come in search of the snake. That mate will see this image of the person who killed her or his mate. And this snake will go in search of that person and will kill him. So this Prabhu who killed the snake, he became so anxious, he didn't know what to do. Prabhupada was just playing with him. He was cracking a joke with him. But Prabhupada said it so seriously. So that night when they went to bed, there was no proper bed, so they were all using sleeping bags. And Prabhupada's secretary, Pradyumna Prabhu, he very intelligently, he slept in between all the other devotees. So in case if the snake comes in search of them, he won't get bitten by the snake. So Prabhupada saw this and he said, oh, you're very intelligent. And Prabhupada said another story. Once upon a time, in a certain village, there was a Brahmana who was insulted by a certain family. And that Brahmana cursed that family. The Brahmana said that the youngest child of this family will die by a snake bite. So this family became very upset. And that night when they went to bed, they put the child in the center, and all of them took places. They slept around the child. But what happened? When they fell asleep, the snake came, slithered through them, bit the child, and the child died. So when Prabhupada said this story, all of them became so anxious, they became so worried. Then Prabhupada finally said, there is nothing to worry. For a devotee, there is nothing to worry. If Krishna decides to save someone, no one can kill him. And if Krishna decides to kill someone, no one can help him or save him. So for a devotee, there's no need to fear. So that's what the second point is about. Devotional service burns up all karma. Hence, he has nothing to fear. What's the third point?
The highest perfection is to act selflessly for the pleasure of the Lord.
Again, perfect example is none other than Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada spent so many sleepless nights. When the whole world was sleeping, Prabhupada would get up at night. He would sleep only for 2 or 3 hours in a day. he would get up at night and he would continuously write books. Besides Bhagavad-gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's written so many small books. It's there in our bookstore. Please have a look before you go. And he did this for what? It was not for personal recognition. He did this simply because he wanted to spread Krishna's message all over the world. So once a disciple asked Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, you have given us so much. How can we repay you? And what did Srila Prabhupada said? He said, just distribute my books. That is what Srila Prabhupada said. So Srila Prabhupada was a perfect example of selfless service. He worked only for the pleasure of Krishna and not for fame or profit. Would you like to hear one more story?
Yes, they go.
Many more stories.
So in the early days of ISKCON, in the 1970s, Srila Prabhupada had this vision that he wanted to establish a grand temple in Mayapur because it was the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But at that time, ISKCON didn't have many resources and they had to face many obstacles too. Because all of Srila Prabhupada's or most of Srila Prabhupada's disciples were Westerners, young Westerners, and they also doubted whether this would be possible to establish a big temple. And Mayapur was a remote village. There was no proper infrastructure, there was no electricity, no proper roads, and frequent flooding used to happen. So his disciples were also very doubtful whether this would happen. But despite all this, Srila Prabhupada said, you should never give up. He kept on encouraging his disciples. And he said that this is the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna will make everything happen. But his disciples, initially though they were doubtful because they didn't have any knowledge about the Indian land laws and they had to face corruption, a lot of resistance from the local officials. But they had faith in Prabhupada. They had so much faith in Prabhupada. So Prabhupada said that never give up, Krishna will arrange everything. And once even local thugs threatened the devotees, they fired shots at them. Again Prabhupada said, don't worry, just keep on working, Krishna will provide everything. And what happened? Gradually through their faith and hard work, finally ISKCON was able to purchase the land and they started building the temple. This is how the temple looked in the early 1970s. Nothing there but a small thatched hut. And Prabhupada said, never think of money. He said that don't think that money is the cause of building a temple. It is Krishna's desire and he will send everything. So from that thatched hut, it progressively came to this stage. The lotus building or the long building came after that. It was on the second floor of this that the previous story happened. Okay, and from today it has evolved into, Prabhupada's dream has turned into a massive temple of Vedic planetarium. It's still going on, the construction is still going on. I think another 1 or 2 years more it will take. And once it's fully constructed, it will become one of the largest temples in the world. So if you'd like to become a part of this project, you can go online, tovp.org. You can contribute in whatever way possible. And it will become not only become a place of worship, it will also become one of the biggest tourist sites as well. So this entire project was built on faith, devotion and selfless service to Krishna, not on personal ambition. So just to conclude, this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Kechit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana akam dunvanti karsnenya niharam iva bhaskara. Translation: Only a rare person who has adopted complete, unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. So, this is the importance of performing akarma or devotional service. By doing that, you can burn up your karmic reactions and thereby make further spiritual progress. There is no other way. Devotional service is the only way by which one can make further progress. So today is February 14th. The whole world is in the mood of Valentine's Day. So instead of developing temporary loving relationships, we should focus on developing our permanent loving relationship with our Supreme Father. And by doing so, we can get out of this material clutches and we can go back to God and back to the spiritual world. So thank you very much for your patient hearing. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Guru Maharaj ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hare Hare Bol.